Being a stuntman is the best job in the world. You're constantly being tested, just risking it all. I used to fly. Nothing's like it, man.
David Holmes, Junior Stuntman Extraordinaire.
David went in for something for the sheer fun of it.
Hi, David.
Hi, David.
He had no concept of fear.
I knew I was going to be a stuntman. Then I got the best job in the world. Lead stunt double for Daniel on the Potter films.
Dave just seemed like a cool older brother. He would do the most dangerous physical stuff.
We would do things no one thought was possible.
What was nice about it was that they all grew up together, 10 years on every film. But it was brilliant until it wasn't.
I remember straight after breaking my neck, there's no chance of coming back.
Worst day in the film business that I've ever had.
It is unfair. He shouldn't have had to do any of that.
In my mind, Dave's indestructible.
This terrible thing happened to Dave, but I don't want to talk as if his life is a tragedy. The way his life has affected the lives of people around him means that it is the furthest thing from that imaginable.
3, 2, 1, Southwest! Before my accident, everything was about being cool and being a stuntman. Now it's about being present. I have so much love in my life.
All I needed a couple of fans.
You got your mum?
You know, I had lots of great friends and I'm so lucky. I've had such a crazy life. Such highs and such lows. But I was able to find light in the darkest of places.
I'm Quinny, and this. Who are the rest of you? Go on, somebody say something.
Hi, I'm Jill.
Hi, I'm Peter.
Yay! Well,
You know, sometimes we do that and sometimes we don't, and it
I
always
know.
takes me by surprise when
Yes,
we do.
you look
I feel
terrified
like I'm
every
like
time.
on Play School or something. Like,
Yeah.
hi, I'm Peter.
I'm sorry. I'm sorry. I just realized I was like, I don't know what I was saying. I just want to say hello and welcome everybody and hopefully not have a coughing fit. Are you okay, Pete?
You know, it's funny. I've been talking to you guys for like 15 minutes pre-stream and didn't cough once. And like literally the second we start, it's
Yep.
here we go.
Yep. Absolutely. It's like magic, isn't it?
Turns
Much
out
like-
heat and humidity are worse for asthma than cold weather is. I am now
Really?
finding out with this extended stretch of horrendous heat and humidity.
I would have
Yes.
thought dry air would be worse than wet air, but
No, heavy wet air full of spores and pollution and stuff, apparently.
Oh,
Yeah.
okay.
Yeah.
Anyway, there's your local health bulletin for the for the evening.
Yes, absolutely. And it is the middle of summer and therefore sweaty as balls and cloying and overheaty and occasionally rainy just to make sure that you know that it's sweaty. So, yay, isn't that fun? But that's not what we're talking about tonight. We're going completely off off the weather. And we're talking about an interesting little documentary called, well, I went looking for it under the name The Boy Who Lived and realized that that's not what it's called. In fact, it's very difficult to find if you call it The Boy Who Lived. So
Yeah.
it's called David Holmes, The Boy Who Lived. Now, okay, cards on the table, magical cards as they may be.
Mhm.
Who's a Potter person?
I mean, define a Potter person.
Well, I would say somebody who, yeah, okay, Jill,
I'm
how
a
would you define a
I'm a Potter person, but I'm not a J.K. Rowling person.
okay. What
Yeah.
about, would you consider, like, what do they call them? Potterheads or the
Yeah.
like hardcore fans?
Yeah, I've read all the books. I've done all the voices as I've read the books because I read the books twice, once to myself and once to my sister because she's so
Amazing.
lazy. She's 4.5 years younger than me. You'd think like a teenager could read a book, but
I badly want to hear your Hagrid now.
Oh, God, yes.
no!
Yes, yes. I want to hear your Hagrid.
All right, Harry.
Well, done.
I like it. That's gorgeous. And it's
Yeah,
not even really a shit accent.
thanks.
No.
I've seen all the movies a few times. Yeah. I'm a Hufflepuff.
Are you?
Yes.
I am puff and proud.
I think I
took a
might
long
be a Huffledore though, because like I've got
time.
Gryffindor-ish things, but primarily Hufflepuff.
Right,
Do you
okay.
have to have done the Pottermore test to declare your house, or can you just do it based on a strong understanding of your own personality?
I mean, you could do that, but I automatically wanted to just cast myself in Gryffindor. So I did take the Pottermore test and it told me I was Hufflepuff. And then I was like, yeah, all right, fine. That's probably true.
Yeah, no, I'm definitely a Ravenclaw though.
100%.
Like,
130.
I'm not
You do
casting
not-
myself in Gryffindor. I know
You do
who
not
I
need
am.
to take the test. No.
I'm not brave, but I am pernickety. So there's that.
I like to
read all
think
of
of
the
myself as
books.
brave, but I know I'm not. I know that I'm somebody who would much rather care about the people around me than go into battle for them or whatever. I'll fight if I have to, but I'd much rather everybody just talk it out and have a nice, butterbeer and just
Yes.
chill out. or
Fierce
something like that.
loyalty to friends is a very strong Hufflepuff trait.
Like I say, puff and proud.
Mhm.
I got my little badger. I'm all about it. Which, and the question is, what house would Dion be? 100% Slytherin.
Oh, Dion seems offended by me saying that he's for sure Slytherin.
Yeah, I
I
think
don't
he'd
know. I
probably.
would probably go for a Gryffindor actually, because he's got that kind of like wild complacency and like a what do you call it? Like a
Identify as a Potterhead, but I did read all of the books as they were released in high school because age. And the great thing about me in high school is my dad.
Expecto podcast.
No, you mean Axio podcast.
Sorry, my bad. Yeah. So yeah, sorry about that. We did have some technical difficulties, but we are back and we have had a long and fruitful discussion that you have to listen to the podcast now to hear what we were talking about. So we've talked a bit about Harry Potter, and I also have a very weird thing with it these days because now there is the thing of you can like Harry Potter and have a history with Harry Potter.
Oh yeah.
But there is a question as to how you engage with it now. And
yes. I think fan media is fine, but I think purchasing new items that belong to Warner Brothers and the J.K. Rowling estate is putting money in her pocket, and I don't want to support her. So I'm all for people still loving Harry Potter, still reading the books, maybe buy them secondhand or borrow them from the library. But yeah, I think it's really dirty to still be purchasing Harry Potter products brand new.
Yes.
Yeah.
Agreed. Okay, so the good thing about this, the doco that we're talking about actually is entirely without any reference at all to J.K. Rowling.
Exactly.
And I guess in many ways, the Potterness of it is sort of a background, but it's not necessarily what the story is about.
Yeah.
Which, yeah, it makes for an interesting little film. Would you like a synopsis of it?
Please.
Right. Well, we normally would have music doing this, but at the moment, because the stream is what the stream is, let's just, not.
I can give you a little bit of.
Thank you. David Holmes, the boy who lived, is a 20. Sorry, do you want it done as Hagrid?
Oh, yeah, okay. Give us some Robbie Coltrane.
Right. David Holmes, the boy who lived, is a 2023 documentary film about David Holmes, a stunt double who was paralyzed after an on-set accident during the filming of one of the... No, sorry. Doing it in a voice feels really inappropriate.
Oh, okay. Yeah,
We're
maybe.
talking about a guy who's been paralyzed. Sorry, shit accents. No, we're going to go that way. We'll put that one out. No. So, yes, it's a film about a stunt double who was paralyzed after an on-set accident during the filming of one of the Harry Potter films. specifically the last one. It was executive produced by Harry Potter star Daniel Radcliffe. So David broke his neck in 2009, has had complications and years of physical therapy, and that's what this doco is all about.
Mm-hmm.
What did we think?
Honestly, I was surprised that I'd never heard of this story before. I didn't know that a stunt actor working on the films had such a gross injury, and that was now living life as a paraplegic. So I really feel like, in the beginning of the documentary where David's like, I just want to tell my story. I'm like, yeah, buddy, tell it. Like, I want to hear all about like your life and what happened to you. Like, yeah.
Which
sad story, but absolutely fascinating, like how his career came to be.
Yeah.
I feel like I got a lot more out of this documentary than I expected to, given the insights it gives into the process of stunt work. And I was, I guess, a little bit surprised as to how much I learned about that. But with now a little bit more context, it completely makes sense. That particularly the first section of the film was so detailed and kind of fantastically informative and kind of exciting in that respect. And what like a wonderful gift to be able to make a documentary with that much of that kind of archive available to tell the story, because that kind of like behind the scenes window into a very specific part of filmmaking that, if we're going to be honest, unless it's like a big budget, big publicity Tom Cruise thing most of us don't really think about, was really, to me, just as interesting as the highly personal elements of the story. So I think I kind of, I think I got, like I said, more out of it than I thought it was going to, as a doco as a whole. But I also found it to be like quite deeply emotional and distressing in areas, and not distressing but highly emotional in other areas. It's really interesting story to have had the opportunity to kind of view in this way.
It certainly, I mean, it doesn't have any particular bells and whistles. It's not going out to try and make a big shiny splash in terms of documentary. It's very by the numbers. This is good, solid interviews with people. It's a lot of archival footage, and a lot of day in the life sort of footage now, some of which is occasionally feels like, oh, okay, right, we're doing a thing so that we've got a good story beat to do here. But then there's a lot of it that feels very real and quite I don't know, not distressing, but at the same time, there are moments where I was like, oh shit, that the life of somebody in that form of paralysis, it seems incredibly difficult.
Yeah, it's very candid and upfront, and I don't think it really, tries to disguise, the level of comfort that someone with a spinal injury has to go through in a daily life. It's very realistic, and I think besides being a story told about a particular person that this happened to, it's also kind of like opening up a dialogue about people with spinal injuries and the different forms that it can take as well.
Absolutely. And it structurally sort of I found it quite interesting as well, because I was watching it and I kind of got to about the middle and I thought, oh, I feel like we've told the story now.
I know. I was quite astonished. I also got to where I was like, okay, I think it's wrapping up. And I'm like, we're halfway through.
Yeah, and I really did sort of think, where do you go from here?
Yeah.
And I could there was a part of me that was like, okay, are we going to get more trauma? Is is it up from here or down from here? And that was slightly concerning. I will say I thought they did a very good job of leading up to the actual accident itself.
Yeah, there's a lot of history.
A lot of history, and also clearly they're about to, they show footage of the stunt being rehearsed, or perhaps the actual stunt that happened, and the fact that they're very careful about not showing anything.
Yes, they do not show the accident. They cut away before any of that.
But it's just as impactful
Mm-hmm.
because you know it happened and you know the outcome of it. So I found myself kind of almost on the edge of my seat a little bit, going, "Oh God, I don't want to see this."
Yeah.
I may have walked away from the television in that moment.
Yeah,
because I didn't think that they were going to show it, but I didn't want to.
I mean, they got
see
right
it
up to
if
the
they were.
point, and I was a little bit concerned. I'm like, I don't know that I want to see that.
I don't know if that's cheating, but I've kind of fairly visceral reaction because it's a very visceral thing. But it was, interesting to me. I think, again, the way they use, as Quinny said, like, it's just very standard documentary techniques to build into that moment, without being, I think, exploitative about it, but very, like, without being exploitative, like, just even if you just run at it like in the kind of plainest, most matter-of-fact way you can. It's the entire turning point of David's life, and it's like the deeply emotional event for everybody who is interviewed. And it's almost kind of like I'm kind of glad there are no bells and whistles in this kind of storytelling, because it didn't, that putting bells and whistles on that would almost be disrespectful, to what it is, and it could only possibly detract from the story itself.
At no point did I feel, in watching this documentary and already knowing, what the story is about, did it feel that there was a tragedy in this at all. No. There was no build up and like sympathy and empathy and that kind of stuff into like this awful, horrible thing that happened. At no point did they dwell in any angst or tragedy around that. It was all quite an uplifting story. Everything was told from a perspective of joy and love in the career that these people follow and the amazing things that the doors that open for them and that kind of thing, and the ability to be physical because that's what they love to do and that's the job that they chose to do. And no like point or talk of like, oh, it's the risk and we knew what to accept and all this kind of stuff. It was just an accident, and they really just treated it as such, and nobody was demonized, and nobody was dwelled upon in having their life ruined or anything like that, except for like David very matter-of-factly telling his story of the accident that happened.
There were a couple of things that sort of got discussed a little later on, that I actually thought were really nicely handled, but at the same time, I thought, far out, that would have been hard.
Yeah.
So his sort of, they were part of a group of three, I guess you'd say, that there was Daniel, David, and their other friend Mark, who's also a stunty, but sort of come to it a little bit later. And the point where he's talking about having to go back onto set and keep doing the job, I actually got quite choked up by. I was like, oh shit, wow. And it never even occurred to me that in a thing like this, people have to go back to work, and somebody else has to do that stunt again, and odds are that person is going to be somebody that knows the person that was hurt. You know, and that, like, as you say, it didn't wallow in misery or anything like
Yeah.
that. But there were certainly moments where you thought, wow, this is really impacted these people.
Felt like there was this kind of a frank honesty about the way
Yeah.
everything was approached in the interviews. That in some places I thought was quite astounding. You know, particularly towards the end, in some of the kind of more, I don't know if we're going to do a spoiler section or not do a spoiler section here, but you know, given the emotional weight of what, you know, David and the people, you know, who were all affected by this accident have carried for so long, to get the kind of honesty that came out in some of these interviews is actually, you know, fairly astounding. And it feels like, you know, a lot of that is kind of led by David's own attitude, you know, and that probably the others are kind of in a way kind of being led by that. But it's still it's a tricky thing to sit down and have to interview somebody about the worst day of their life, regardless of whether it was the worst day of their life because it's the day their life changed, or it's because that's the day they witnessed somebody who they care about's life changed.
And I think it's interesting that a lot of people will be watching this. A lot of Harry Potter fans and so forth will be watching this with a very close eye on Radcliffe. You know,
I thought his involvement was fairly well balanced, I think. I think, you know, because it's not Daniel's story.
Exactly. He didn't detract from it at all. He was very much just, you know, he's a character in this documentary because he's very close friends with David.
And I think it's a version of him that we haven't seen as much of. Because I feel like we've seen Daniel Radcliffe as he grows up and, you know, doing press and all that kind of stuff. We've seen 10 years or 12 years of Harry Potter Daniel Radcliffe. Now we've seen a bunch of Daniel Radcliffe after Potter where he's just gone, fuck it, I'm going to do whatever I want.
My favorite Radcliffe.
Yes. Was it chaps wearing dancing upside down?
Just Daniel Radcliffe being weird because he can.
Yeah.
Just freaking love it. He makes the most interesting choices.
He does. But also then in this one, this is not him making choices.
No.
This is him just being really quite completely honest about his experiences. And there are a few times I was like, oh wow, he's not actually trying to paint himself in a good light or anything either. You know, he recognizes that there are times where he's like, I wasn't capable of understanding how much this had impacted on people, and I was still being on the tail end of the Harry Potter thing, so I had to keep going to work, and I was, you know, this age or whatever it is. So, and it was just super, super honest. There are a few times where I thought, oh, that guy I like. I think that guy I can see having mates and hanging out and you know, who he is. And it didn't feel protected at all. But I'm guessing that's because he's with his friends, you know. And even the bit where he says at one point that he was scared to visit because he didn't know whether there was going to be enough to talk about. I thought,
I mean, if you relate to somebody on such a level where you both have a job, you know, you're both going to the same job and you work together, you're kind of like work colleagues. And I can understand how, like, oh, well, now that this person's not in that situation anymore and I still want to have a connection with them, are we going to have that same connection that we did before this accident? I can understand that. Yeah, it's weird.
Yeah. And knowing, okay, I'm going to be hanging out with this person
And there might also be like a level of guilt as well, because this person was doing the job for him that he couldn't do, you know?
Yeah. It's a very interesting dynamic, where especially because Radcliffe, wanted to be a stunt guy. He, as a little kid, he's like, yeah, this is awesome. And then as he grew older, no, this is not a thing I can do. I can't do that.
Yeah.
So yeah, I thought initially, oh, is this going to be a bunch of interviews with David and then a bunch of stuff with Daniel Radcliffe to try and kind of, look, I'm a cynic occasionally, and I thought, is it going to be a whole bunch of stuff with Daniel Radcliffe to try and hang this on so that people watch the story? He wasn't the key thing here. No. David is eminently watchable, eminently likable guy who's just going through some fucking awful looking stuff.
Yeah, but still manages to have such an amazing outlook on life, such a positive attitude. I really think that is probably what's got him through a lot of this hard stuff, is that he's just such a chipper dude.
Yeah. And what amazed me is, and this is, look, I don't think we'll have a spoiler section because there's nothing to spoil here.
No.
But there was a point around that sort of midway point where we both sort of had the feeling of like, oh, well, maybe this is the end of the story, where it was like he was actually in a pretty good place, post the accident. I mean, comparatively, a pretty good place. Had full ability to move his arms and was getting quite mobile, could drive, could do all these things. And you really sort of felt like, oh, okay, well, this is a story about somebody who is sort of
in a worst case scenario, he's probably got the best outlook right now. Yeah.
And then the rest of the film happens.
Yeah. He had a rare condition that only happens in about 1% of people with spinal cord injuries, in that a cyst developed on his spinal cord. And so the fluids that it amassed were cutting off nerves to his arms and other functions. So he had to have surgery again.
And again, and again, and again. And that little sequence where he's in hospital and it's sort of going through, and there are some nice sort of filmic moments where they choose how they're going to tell that story.
Oh, through like Instagram posts.
Exactly. Yeah, Instagram posts and TikTok videos and stuff like that was a nice framing thing to show you, oh no, this is actually really not good, and this is getting worse and getting worse and getting worse. So yeah, I was impressed with how they told a story, but that went down, but didn't make it feel like it was taking you down into the darkest depths with it. Pete, what you're looking intently.
I know, I kind of agree. I'm just kind of trying to think in terms of critique, I suppose. I was just trying to think in terms of like the documentary form. If there was anything in particular that bugged me about it, or that I didn't particularly enjoy. The only thing that got to me a little bit, and this is going to just sound like so picky, but it's like this weird thing that I noticed, is that like I didn't love all of the interview frames. Like particularly when you're doing like some quite like emotionally intense interviews, having kind of like a cold, unattractive background sometimes, or perching your contributor on a stool in a way that looks like a little bit uncomfortable to sit, is something that I see like coming back a lot, and I'm like, oh, just like I love a beautiful interview frame. Particularly when something is like really heavily interview based, and like I didn't like super love that as a stylistic element here. But it doesn't like really from the story, it doesn't detract. That's just me being like, oh, that could have been more beautiful.
Yeah. Yeah, I know what you mean. There were a couple of where, and I think, to be honest, I feel like there is a lot of this that is actually a documentary being built over a long period of time, and possibly not with the full intent at the start to make it a really polished, high end, documentary. So there are some interviews that are better than others. And there are some framings that you go, it's somebody who's kind of sat down on their couch and they've gone, okay, let's do a bit of an interview. And then there are others where you're like, okay, no, we'll put you in proper lighting and we'll make more of this. And I feel like, but that's also part of the thing of telling a story over a number of years. Because from what we see here, there's at least 9 years, I think, of life that goes through from David, where just post accident right through till today, basically. And I will say I was very happy that there wasn't a bummer of an ending, because I honestly, there's always a thing with documentaries where you think, what's our end point?
I know, and yeah, luckily it's a pretty recent release as well. It just came out last year, so there's no like, that text at the end that says, and then so and so passed away on this date, and then you're like, ah.
Yeah.
But no, I mean, David's health's still a little bit up in the air, unfortunately, and like, he is in decline. But yeah, there was no like death notice at the end, thank God.
Oh, no, interesting. The text at the end directs us all to a podcast that we need to go and listen to.
Yes, that's true. We should give a little plug. I want to make sure I say the name correctly. David does a podcast where he does talk to other stunties, and it is called Cunning Stunts. Not to be confused with the name of my other podcast.
And not to be confused what I'd go with a big heavy hammer on the weekend, around hitting people over the back of the head,
And honestly, after watching this film, I'd be really interested to go and listen to that podcast, because that glimpse into the world of stunts and what it actually is and what it involves and the kinds of people who actually are in there making those kinds of things happen, like, it's just super interesting. And I think it does help that the vision that is being used to tell that part of the story is very recognizable vision from the Harry Potter films. But I also think that's interesting because obviously, like, the Harry Potter films being what they are, they're not like known as stunt films.
No.
So, they're not, you kind of Mission Impossible. So like I said, it's
exactly
obviously, thinking about it in hindsight, obviously there are a bunch of stunts in the Harry Potter films. But, because of the way we do filmmaking as a collaborative art, and something like that isn't supposed to be visible. So you've got these people doing all of this work that nobody thinks about in the end. Like, if you went to the film and enjoyed the action and got invested in Harry Potter, playing that Quidditch game, then you haven't even thought about half of the people who actually made that experience happen for you. And there's really kind of, it's a bit of behind the scenes that doesn't necessarily get a lot of real life attention outside of, like, movies about stunt people turn CIA people, or Tom Cruise doing something completely ridiculous but really impressive. And I really enjoyed that element, and I was really, like, happy to see that one of the things that David is continuing to do is, bring that work to the fore and help people to understand it.
And also encouraging kids to look into being stunt performers. Like, he still goes out to his old gymnastics club and, talks to the kids and, gives them advice and that sort of thing. And I think it's just fascinating the different walks of life you can come from to become a stunt performer. And I did like that little tidbit in the documentary where he said Jason Statham used to be a professional diver. And
Yeah.
I'm like, what?
Yeah. I do remember reading that somewhere and thinking, okay, fair enough.
Okay, yeah, I can't imagine him diving off the 10-foot board.
I'm ready to make a big splash. No, sorry, a small splash. Get out of my way.
So
One thing-
Dion in the chat is saying that it was also interesting to see how the stunts evolved over the years as the actors grew, and also because David was keen to, you know, do more with what he was doing there. Which, yeah, that you know, that entire part of the documentary, and what David and the stunt team on Harry Potter achieved over those however many films it was. I've forgotten how many. That's
8.
ridiculous, isn't it, that I should forget how many Harry Potter films there
Yeah.
are. Was like super interesting, and I'm really glad that I got to see that bit of the story.
Well,
even though I know it wasn't the main bit of the story is really about David. You know, that really got me in.
The other thing that I think is interesting about those stunts and those films is because all of the performers or most of the people doing the stunts were children. So there was a lot of, you know, child, and I mean they're adults as
teenagers,
well. Yeah. You've got a different kind of need for stunt performers, but also a lot of the time they were things that, you know, stunts that were trying to replicate an effect of magic or something like that. So things that most people would look at and go, okay, that's special effects. You know, riding on a nimbus and having to fly around and then getting flipped over where you're doing a magic wand attack or something like that.
Or the never long bottom fall, as Dion is saying in the chat.
That was fantastic.
I love that because everyone absolutely remembers that moment in the movie.
Yeah.
And the like, of course it didn't occur to me that like some kid actually fell like that, because fuck me, that looked painful.
Yes. And I do like that. That's Tolga Keenan, who ended up working with Mark Maley, and are now working as stunt performers, but also specifically looking into safety in stunt performing. And I love that. I love that, you know, from all of this bad, you know, this really terrible thing, good things come from it. You know, and hopefully I think that's kind of why I assume David wanted to make this story, is to say something bad has happened, but in the end, good things can still come from it.
Yeah.
Also, are we gonna rate and clip, or
yes, I think so, because we've got a clip, and we can do some ratings, and we'll come back. So actually, how's about we do a clip and then we come back and do our ratings and our results.
Sure, mix it up.
Just for something different,
Let's
and watch
do it.
Dion go, oh God, no.
Poor Dion.
How much has
I'm so
Dan's
sorry,
friendship
Dion.
helped you through your toughest times?
Oh, mate, I was in hospital at Christmas at Queen's Square, like with a brain drain on my head. And him and his partner come and see me, sat with me for 2 hours. Tom Felton did the same. Me breaking my neck is not the most positive story. I feel like everyone's old enough to hear my contribution to those wonderful films.
David, Daniel, it's so lovely to meet you both, and congratulations on such a beautiful film. I was in bits watching it pretty much from start to finish.
Oh, thank you, man.
Now we've lost that. Have we lost you, Dion?
It'll probably just be how we can't hear the clip sometimes.
I hope so. Or we've just lost Dion again.
Oh, we're live.
Oh, we're
Oh,
live.
right,
Thanks,
okay.
Okay. We're back.
Okay.
Faith letting us know inside the Twitch chat that we're live.
We cannot hear the clip. We cannot hear Dion. We just can't hear anything. We're professionals. We're
I feel
certainly
like that
not
is
three people
Dion
sitting around in a
getting us
lounge
back
room.
to randomly throwing to a clip when he wasn't expecting it.
Yeah.
Did we see all
You
of the
know
clip,
what?
or no? Was it just a really short clip? Oh,
It's a
we read
very
it,
short
okay.
clip.
Right.
Dion is sick. The stream is sick. Everything is sick. It's fine.
We are
fully
indeed
sick.
down with the sickness.
Oh,
Okay.
dear.
So yeah, shall we do some kind of numerical rating on this?
Oh my God, I don't know how to give this a number rating. I'd just rather say like a yay or nay. And I'm like, watch it.
Yeah,
I
I
mean,
agree.
I definitely think watch it. Like it's a really worthwhile story. That it's only an hour and a half, good length for a feature, not
Yeah.
painful to watch.
I mean, it's not like I can start at 100 and take points off for stuff that was bad about it. Like I'm like, oh, he was in a wheelchair, didn't like that. He had the accident, didn't like that. What? I can't rate it like that. I don't know.
I mean, there were moments that I kind of had, like my cynical film watchy brain kicked in, and I went, okay, has this been done for a reason? Like there were things where I thought, okay, are we seeing this because somebody's gone, okay, we need an emotional point here or whatever. But honestly, that's just me being really, really cynical. There was a point, and I think there is an emotional kind of point right near the end where we kind of realized that Greg Powell, who was the stunt coordinator, who was ostensibly, well, in charge on the day of the accident, and whether you say is responsible for or takes responsibility for, the moment where he goes and sees David, and you realize that there has been a bit of a schism and that they aren't necessarily comfortable, that I sort of thought this could be played for emotion.
I got very emotional in that bit.
And that's the thing. I thought,
yeah,
I did have that moment of like, am I being manipulated to feel an emotion here? Or is this real emotion? And after a minute, I just went, I don't care. I'm actually really invested in these people. And I think because Greg, throughout the whole thing, comes off so stoic, and like, very gruff, manly man. Yeah, we do stunts. Yeah. And to see that exterior crack, yeah, I was like, oh, yep, right, there's the emotions.
Yeah, and that I didn't feel like that was being played for anything. I feel like that was a very honest moment that had been, caught on film and hopefully respectfully used with permission from all involved, because it was very honest and very raw, and I thought that was a very genuine moment. There were definitely times, in the kind of third act where there were moments that I did feel were kind of contrived to kind of try to build in the end of that plot. But, it kind of comes down to the question as a documentarian of, okay, so like this story actually hasn't finished. Like David's story hasn't finished. There is kind of no like convenient ending that you can kind of plug into this story as a documentary maker and have it like all wrapped up in a neat narrative bow at the end. So I think these kind of moments at the end where he's, do feel a little bit contrived, where they bring the Daniel and David into the same room and chat, and then they bring all of the Tolga and Mark and Daniel and David, and they're kind of having a chat about things. They are moments that do feel kind of contrived, like we're kind of reaching to figure out what the closing message is and what the end of the story is. But having said all of that, how do you finish a documentary about a person's story who is very much, still unfolding? And I think it was nice to be able to bring all of those characters we had been hearing from back together and complete all of their arcs in a way, even if some of those moments to me actually did feel a little bit contrived, which I found a little bit kind of distracting. But that moment with Greg, I didn't feel it was contrived. That felt very kind of raw to me.
And I think, as you say, Pete, it's one of those things about trying to construct a documentary that has a shape.
And what do you want that shape to be, and what are we trying to say by making this documentary? And if that's
and
how we brought those messages
crisis, or does it have a finale, as it were, or anything like that?
Yeah.
Yeah. And I thought there was a sequence that I actually really enjoyed, where they went to the prop store.
Yeah, that was actually really, that was very, very sweet. I liked that a lot.
Yeah, and once again, another part of filmmaking that you don't think about, but there's a gigantic storeroom with every single costume and every single from every player on every film. You think, holy shit!
And the Batmobile.
And the Batmobile. That was so good.
I need to find out the address of the Warner Brothers warehouse.
Well, yeah, and which is interesting because I look at that and I'm like, I imagine that's probably the Batmobile from The Flash.
Oh.
Because I'm pretty sure that was shot in the UK.
Okay. Interesting.
Yeah. So yes,
Anyway.
but
I don't know how to rate this.
Daniel, I don't think you can rate it.
I found this story very biographical. Like I quite enjoy learning about people's lives, and if they have an interesting story to tell, I just want to hear about it and learn about them. So yeah, I would have read this if he had written a book, but I found it to be a very biographical storytelling style documentary.
Dion is in the chat rating it as uplifting, so that's Dion's rating. I mean, I could rate this, but if we're not going to rate it, I won't put numbers on. I will say it's definitely worth watching.
Numbers are.
I thought that maybe I would find this distressing, and I didn't. I actually found it. If we're rating just via single words, mine would be enlightening. If this is our new system, then it is like even more strange than our usual system. Just our fickle and arbitrary rating system has just like gone right off the edge of the cliff now.
I kind of like it though. Just a single word of rating. Oh my god.
Yeah, I mean, if it's a yes or no, doesn't that automatically mean our yeses are 100s?
Whoa.
Okay, I gotta say, as a documentary, based on form, I wouldn't rate this 100. Yeah. Like from a just from a doco perspective, I wouldn't rate it 100, but I would rate it, definitely watch it. Yeah. Particularly, if you're interested in Harry Potter, if you're interested in filmmaking, or if you're interested in watching biographical stories of really interesting people who have done cool things and can teach you something about how you approach the world, this film is for you.
Yeah. Dion uses the phrase that it could have devolved into inspiration porn, and I think it does a very good job of not being that. I
just very matter
I like
of
the
fact.
other half of Dion's sentence. He says it has a lot of emotion in it that was humanizing and encouraging.
Yeah.
And if I had to give it a single word, which is now what we're doing, it would be humane. Like it felt very human, and which is
Dion is gonna murder us. This is not like a change that we had discussed. This is just something that's unfolding right now.
This
is
shit
it going to happen
on
next
the fly.
week? It might.
Who knows? I don't know. Like, this is the thing. We've been doing the same format for 300 and something shows now, 346
Maybe
shows.
we'll rate it in the opening and then tell you what, and then give you the spoilers and then tell you why later.
Maybe we'll start doing 2 films and a TV series every single episode. Who the fuck knows?
God, maybe I'll shoot myself because I don't want to do that much work.
But look, I can't think of a lot of people who would, be asking us whether or not to watch the film, in terms of the TPTOA community, who wouldn't get something out of this.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. Like unless you flat out just hate docos, and frankly, in my free time, not my favorite thing to do, given it kind of feels like work. So it's you know, I sometimes I do get mad if you try to make me watch a doco, and I wasn't mad at this.
Yes, and also it doesn't hurt at all the fact that it is tied to something that we all have a reaction to, the Potter world and so forth. And yeah, like, well worth a look. I can't rate it. You know, I think it's a film, and it's worth a look. Yes. Right. Well, thank you so much for joining us. Dion said Potter adjacent. Yes. I think this is exactly what this is. Yeah, give it a look. So next week.
Yeah, it's
Jill, you look
February.
confused.
February next month. We're going to have
did
to
that first month of the year
put
go?
our schedule out shortly, but I'm pretty safe to say that next week we will be talking about Argyle.
Yes, the movie about socks.
Yes, they're really leaning hard into the Argyle pattern for their promotions, aren't they?
Yeah, I'm excited for it. We will be going and watching screening tomorrow, funnily enough, which we will be having a good time. Dion's asking, when are we doing Wonka? I would do Wonka. Yeah, Wonka. But I feel like you're being a bit sarcastic there.
I think this month we'll probably also be doing Madam Web, because I just really want to shit can something. I think that would be
so
fun.
fascinated.
I think that would be fun. Also, Has Been Hotel. Have you guys heard about this one?
Yes, I have. In fact, I've got the first episode of it sitting on my Amazon Prime in another tab.
Oh, lovely. Yeah. I don't know. Maybe we'll give that a look. Or
so, Pete, to explain Has Been Hotel, it is so one thing that you will dislike, it's animated, but it is also a musical.
Yeah.
So,
Well, they've got to replace Schmigadoon somehow.
Yeah, it's about some demons. It's set in hell. Yeah.
Yeah. It's got it's sort of a good little introductory history of Lilith and Satan and Lucifer and all that kind of stuff. It's very entertaining.
Theon is having a tantrum in the chat.
Power World. Oh, Power World, that Pokemon ripoff.
Yeah, the game that's probably been mostly built by AI. Yeah, let's do that.
Oh dear.
Actually,
Casper's now suggesting we review theme park rides.
I mean,
okay, we're just going full chaos now.
Well, because we've thrown everything out the window.
Okay, if we're going to review the light rail between Darling Harbour and Circular Quay, I'm going to do a deep dive on the monorail that used to exist. And I'm going to give you my review of the monorail.
I will join in that review, because I once rode it just for half a day when I was a kid.
Loved the monorail. Okay, so here's a tangent.
We're off. Dion, what have you done?
In my younger years, when I was studying Japanese at UTS and hanging out in the city on weekends, doing DDR at the Market City, we would thrash ourselves so hard we couldn't walk. So we'd get on the monorail at Chinatown and take it up to Town Hall.
Amazing.
$5. I'm like, yeah, I can't walk from Chinatown to Town Hall after doing DDR for 5 hours. Like, shit.
Oh my God.
Yeah.
See, I only ever got to
the
ride it once when I came up to here as quite young. I still wholeheartedly believe that the monorail should have been left there and extended.
Yes.
It would have been so much better than our
that
fucking light rail system.
That walk across the Piermont Bridge is a bitch, but the monorail, nah,
straight over. All they had to do was extend the monorail down to Circular fucking Quay, and we would have, and it wouldn't have interrupted the traffic. We wouldn't have had 5 years of fucking light rail bullshit.
Exactly.
I feel like this is a lesson for Dion in careful what you wish for.
Yeah. I also would like to drop a quick review of the new issue of Greener Pastures.
Okay.
That Tim McEwen, who's a good friend of ours, is releasing in about 8 days' time. Will probably be 7 by the time this comes out. It's the first one in nearly 20-something years, and it is a jam issue where every page is drawn by a different artist. It is very, very cool and is well worth checking out. I know Dion's a big fan of Greener Pastures. If you don't know about what Greener Pastures is about, it's about a bull called Trevor, who essentially just moves into the big city and starts trying to live his life. It's very strange and very funny. Yes. Anything else we want to review while we're just randomly reviewing shit?
Dion says he's going to review the GYG in King's Cross. I
Sweet,
would
yeah.
like to go to South Nowra and review the new drive-through restaurants that they've just put in. So
For
Nowra
GYG?
have finally realized that they actually have a population that deserves takeaway. And yeah, there's a GYG down there. There's I can't remember what the other restaurant was, but yeah.
Fantastic.
Casper wants to know what our local pancakes on the rocks are. Mine is the North Rocks one.
Yeah, I think Rocks is about, oh, yeah, either that
No,
or the
mine's
one
North
in,
Rocks, not the Rocks.
oh, mine's the Rocks. Yeah, right.
Mm.
Sorry. My bad.
Yeah.
Yes. Peter, anything you want to review, just randomly?
I mean, maybe next week I'll go and review the Gold Coast Casino.
Jupiter's!
Who knows what's going to happen?
Do you know that you can't play poker in Queensland?
What?
I mean, no, because I actually hate casinos. I know there's a lot of things you can't do in Queensland. I didn't realise that was one of them.
Yeah.
Dion requests that you review the actors.
I'll review the
there's
actors.
one for you, Pete.
Yes, that'll be like kind of a meta situation. But
Depends whether you win any or not.
Well, yes, if we win one of the two actors that we're nominated for, then the actors will be getting a good review.
10 out of 10, no notes.
So the actors can take a note on that and do with it what they will.
Just quietly, what have you been nominated for?
Oh, we're competing against ourselves.
Oh.
We've got 2 nominations in the documentary cinematography category for Australia's Wild Odyssey and Shackleton, The Greatest Story of Survival, the feature film that we had out last year as well. So we're basically split our own votes, which is genuinely actually a terrible idea. So
And how many others are there in the category?
there's, I think, 5 nominated in the category. So it is
So
by
you've got
no means
2
any
out
kind
of
of guarantee. Yes, but this has happened before, and we have had 0 awards at the end of it. So
Because
Still, the odds are pretty good.
splitting your votes.
because we have split our own.
Damn it. You guys should
Still,
just
you're an Emmy
like...
Award-winning person, so you know. I mean,
Oh,
guys
it's
have just
fine.
gotta
Like nobody,
gain
like
one.
I did wait for quite some time for somebody to knock on a door and come and take that away, and nobody has yet. So, like, that's fine.
Excellent.
I take everything else as it comes.
Yeah. Well, look, I feel like this may become a new feature. At the end of every episode, we just review a random thing.
Okay, yeah, I like that. We need to mix it
And
up. this
Dion's
year.
like, no, Quinny, no. Yeah, look, we've been doing this for a long fucking time. I think we should start reviewing random things at the end of our
Yeah,
episodes.
should be allowed to have fun.
Yeah, damn fucking straight. We do this. We love you as our audience, and we love talking about shit that we watch and enjoy and play and ride upon. So
Yeah,
why
when
can't
someone
we?
stops being sick, we can actually get together and record drunk cinema.
Ah, yes. Aquaman 2. I'm really looking forward to hearing what you all think of that as we get progressively shit-faced.
Yeah.
Fantastic. Well, we'll see you back here next week for Argyle, and there will be an announcement in the next couple of days as to what's on for the rest of the month. Thank you so
Yeah.
much for joining us. Suppose we could probably go and raid someone. Yeah, let's
Sure.
go and raid Hex. Let's go and raid Hex.
Lovely.
Beautiful. Thanks, everybody. We'll see you next
Right.
week.
Bye.
I wanna live in a world full of heroes, not sit here counting zeros in a cubicle downtown. I wanna look out my window, see 'em flying, and swing across the horizon as I cheer 'em on so proud. Deep-powered girl